Thank you, and a very good afternoon to all you ladies and gentlemen. Certainly a pleasure to be back again in Hyderabad, almost a year since we had our last get-together here. Last year when we met, we were very unsure about how the year would unfold, and we were wondering, would we continue with the COVID impact? Would we be able to actually get out of it and do something which could be back again, what we used to do in 2019? So those were some of the thoughts that went through our minds last year. But we've all been pleasantly surprised. And we've been pleasantly surprised for a variety of reasons. One, the impact of COVID was, of course, not as bad as what we thought it would be. And we've now begun to treat it as part of life. So now, even as of today, we have roughly about 11,000 cases a day in India, but we think it's part of daily routine, and we haven't let it affect us. So I think that is one. The second is that, when we talk about effect, we also have to remember what does it mean to the consumer. And what we've seen with the consumers is that their confidence has been increasing. So from the down that they went to in 2021, actually consumer confidence has grown. And if you look at the recent results of consumer confidence released by the Reserve Bank of India, we can see that we are back to about 87%. 100 is when you actually get from pessimism to optimism, but we are at about 87, which is good news. And what we've also seen is that the trends are relatively similar between urban and rural markets. So that's also good news, because 2/3 of our population live in rural India, and we've got to be equally concerned about them. The third thing that we need to be happy about is the fact that we saw differential performance between online players and offline players last year. And what we did get to see with the offline players is that we began to see a resurgence amongst them. What we did see with the online players is that the initial traction that they had gained in 2020 and 2021 when the markets were closed, all of that traction seems to have disappeared, which means that their growth rate started flattening. And when their growth rate started flattening, it coincided with the fact that with the offline players, their growth rates actually started accelerating. And you all would be certainly familiar with the results of our monthly survey, which we send out to everybody about what has been the performance. And there has never been a month in the year of 2022 when we were actually below 20% like-for-like growth against 2019, which meant that, things were pretty good. A lot of us were not comfortable with digital technologies in 2019. We began to understand what digital technology meant. We also began to appreciate the impact that it could make on our businesses, and we began to adopt some of these in some form or the other. So whether it was in the front of the store in terms of delivering better customer experience, or whether it's part of your operations, or whether it was part of supply chain, or whether it was in terms of the way you tweaked your marketing to make sure that it is more digital than physical. There were a variety of ways in which we began to start adopting digital technologies into our business. So that's the other change that we all made. And when we look at this state, this is one state that we always see as being very progressive. Telangana, AP, similar to Tamil Nadu and Kerala, has always been, the center of the growth of modern retail in this country. Some of the early chains in modern retail came out of this region. Some of the new formats, the new trends that we've seen in retail also came out of this region. And what we continue to see is the local strength, the power of the local retailer. So there are brands which are unique to this region, which is Telangana, AP, and those brands continue to power ahead despite the entry of several national brands into this geography. So that's another area that we've seen where all of the local retailers certainly have done very well. What we are also beginning to notice is that as we go along, there's also new generations coming into our retail businesses. And when we look at these new generations coming into our retail businesses, our sons and daughters, then what does happen is that their outlook on how the business should be run, what are the kind of categories that we need to be getting into, how should our stores look, how should we manage finance, all that changes. And what we have to learn, understand, and appreciate is the fact that there is an opportunity for change. And that change needn't come from a consultant outside of our business. That change can actually come from your next generation who would like to do things slightly differently. Maybe outside consultants would be useful in terms of helping you in thinking or steering the direction of the change. But otherwise, when you look at it, a lot of that change to be sustainable has to be driven internally. As a country, we've also created a lot of change. We've had situations, today we have, if you look at it from a connectivity perspective, we are connected pretty much all of India. If you look at it in terms of content, we've gone from the days of, just textual content to video content, because that is the strength of the connectivity that we've managed to build up. If you think about payment systems today, we've gone from the days of 25, 30 million credit card users who could transact to more than 250 million digital payment users who use things like UPI and various other ways to be able to transact. All of that has been enabled by the government. In addition to this, what we're also beginning to see is the impact that, platforms like ONDC will make for us. And when ONDC comes in and gets established, it'll give everybody a level playing field to be able to participate in the greater retail journey rather than it being confined only to the larger players and those who've got more money. What we're also seeing is that logistics has improved a lot. And Nitin Gadkari talks about various expressways and roads which are connecting this country, but those are making a change. They're making a change because transportation today is much faster. When transportation is much faster, then the number of warehouses that you need to operate with actually reduce. So you have lesser number of warehouses. And when you have lesser number of warehouses, your ability to manage inventory becomes a lot easier, and your cost of capital in terms of which is blocked in inventory actually reduces. So when you begin to think of all of these things, what are the kind of impact that all these various changes which are happening around us will make on our businesses, combined with what we do ourselves, what we're looking ahead for is a wonderful season. And when I talk about a season, it's not just about the summer season or the winter season. It's about the season of retail. And I believe that today when we look at an India which is getting richer, when we think of the tipping point as being $3,000, which is where consumption patterns tend to change, and we are probably about 15 years behind when China hit $3,000, which was way back in 2007. But what we've seen in the 15 years in China, between 2007 and now, is a learning for us in terms of what we are likely to see ahead of us when we hit $3,000, which is not very far away. We currently are the most populous country in the world, as per the statistics which has been released today. So we can claim credit for that. We still need to be the number one in terms of retail. It's not just about population. So we've got a great set of things which are happening for us, and we've got to look forward with optimism about what we think the future will hold. All of us are capable of being able to seize the opportunity which lies in front of us, and I wish you all the very best in that journey. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.